Welcome to Duluth Junction Workshop. I'm Tyler. This is my 1973 Saab Sonett 3, and I've been working for about a year since I pulled this out of the barn to get it back on the road after sitting 20 years. One of the last things I have to do to this thing is to replace the outer CV boots. They're really torn and really not safe to be driving on for a car that you can't get parts for. So we're going to go over in this episode how to replace the outer CV boots, re-grease the CV joints, and reassemble everything on a V4 Saab. And this should include the 95, 96, and 97. To get the caliper off, we have these little tabs to bend over. Told you can use some star washers to put them back on, but I haven't gotten there yet. We'll go and hang the caliper up. Keep the weight off that hose. Now let's install the Saab hub puller tool. I'm borrowing this from a friend, thank you Jeff, and I'd like to make my own based on this as a template. So if you'd like to see that in a future video, let me know in the comments. Dust cover. As tempting as it is to jump in and pull that axle right out, we need to go up here, take this boot off. And the boot needs to move a little bit. Just got a hose clamp on there. Saab has been nice enough to spare us the agony of taking off the upper ball joint and the tie rod end, so we're just going to take out these two bolts on the knuckle, and then we're going to take out the two bolts on the lower ball joint, and that'll allow this whole thing to come right out. Now you should be able to knock that LVJ loose, and we're coming out, baby. See if we can turn the boot sideways. That's how you're supposed to pull it out. I don't know if that actually works. Whatever. Try not to mess up your boot. Slight wear in the CV boot.
I think you're ruining a perfectly good boot.
You could get at least 7 more miles out of this boot. So we have a inner part that actually engages the splines on the shaft. So we want to only tap on these square sections coming up. This round thing is part of the bearing, ball bearing cage, so you don't want to press on that. I found out the trick for the last axle was to line this up and align it perfectly with the shaft, just like kind of pulling a transmission input shaft out. And when you get that lined up and the snap ring compresses correctly, it'll just pop right off. Did that move it? Oh, we got it! There we go. It slid down from that big lock ring, and we ended up using a brass block. You could use a brass drift if you have one. So now I guess we just gotta slide this thing all the way over that smaller lock ring, and it should come right off. There we go. Boom. So you can see the 2 lock rings there. Donney has a little video on this showing the correct use with the factory tools. If you have the factory tools, obviously you probably know how to do this already. But it shows a good kind of in process. So I'm just going to use this lock ring removal tool. I was not able to find part numbers for these lock rings, and I work at Napa right now, so if you have numbers that you know work in the past like year for these lock rings, shoot them in the comments and we'll get those in the community so people can use them. Here's a closer shot of the CV joint itself, so you can see that splined intersection moves around inside, and then we have our ball bearing cage. So I'm going to get the old grease cleaned out as best I can, obviously get the little foliage out. From Ashcraft Saab V4 parts, we have the front axle boot outer. This is a kit, and someone said that you might be able to get a universal boot that would serve the same purpose and fit just as well. So If I hear of a boot number, part number that will work, I will put it in the description, but I felt comfortable getting this. I assume that other people have used it before. It comes with the boot, the 2 clamps, and special CV boot grease. There's CV grease that comes from Germany apparently. So if you don't want to buy the special stuff, your local auto parts store will have CV grease as well. But I'm going to go in here kind of like a normal wheel bearing. I'm going to put pieces in those holes and then kind of press them in. And I'm going to go around the edges. So the last thing I do with this is I'm going to take the grease and just pour it straight down in the middle. That'll form a big glob in the bottom. And it's almost going to fill up the entire cavity in there. So when you put the stub axle in, that's going to force the grease out the sides, and that'll lube the bottom of these balls and the cage in there. The paint on the axle came up pretty well, if I do say so myself. And we got the CV joint packed with grease. Let's give a little love to the inner needle bearings. I'm not looking to go crazy here. I just want to refresh it a little bit. So I'm going to pull the cap off of here. Get our bearings in there. And then I'm going to just squirt that cap full of new CV boot grease. And I'll put it back on. It's going to squirt all that old grease out the edge there. So we're going to do that once more, and that will basically press all the grease through those needle bearings just like it's packing a wheel bearing. So watch that come out again. Now if it's a little bit further out there, that suggests that there might be, yep, there's a needle bearing sideways. So I'm going to use a little flathead screwdriver and I'll put that one back on, and we can watch that. Hopefully it all goes in correctly. Oh yeah. Look at all that grease coming out. Before I get these snap rings back on, I want to make sure I put my boot on. Let's get this thing set up better and we'll slide the re-greased joint on. We're trying to compress that small ring so it fits inside the splines, and when that fits in, the whole thing will drop in. There is a special Saab tool that you can use, but if you don't have the tool, like I don't, you can kind of use 3 or 4 screwdrivers. Woohoo! So I got a little sill glide on this thing. Maybe not enough. Thank you to those on the Saab group that helped me figure this out, but it goes all the way down till it basically seals against that knuckle. Well, we got the CV joint greased up, we got a new outer boot, new clamps on it, got the shaft itself painted. The inner boot looked fine, so I just greased the inner needle bearings, and let's stab this thing back in the car. There we go. Okay. I got the Lyndon B. Johnson installed as I installed the half shaft. Now it's time to go with this knuckle connector here. I don't know what you call this. And look at this. So the bolts don't line up at all. This basically hyperextends the shock. Probably not super great for the bushings, but you gotta get it in. Don't forget to bend over your little washer thing here. Got that seated up. Let's throw the castle nut on, and then we need to torque this to we need to torque this to, dang it, 130? 130, let's do that. Then back to finger tight. Caliper's on. Hub is on. We got a cotter pin. There's only one more thing to do before we put the wheel on. And that is tighten up that little clamp in there. Well, that's about it. Hope you enjoyed it. If you like this content, please like and subscribe. I've got a lot more on the Saab, and I got some stuff on some other cool old cars as well. Let's take this thing for a drive and see how it goes. I threw an exhaust on it finally, and I'm waiting for a second exhaust hanger to come in, so it's a little bit sideways, but we got a 11-inch thrush muffler to this nice dual tip resonator tip muffler, which actually takes the sound down pretty well. Inside we got our trunk seam sealed, and that was something I was trying to do after the trunk replacement, never got to it. So that's all done, got it painted over, batteries reinstalled. Let's flip this dusty piece of, oh, gross. I don't need earplugs anymore to drive, which is great. Let's take a rip on one of the first roads I drove this on when I got it started. Oh, that's fourth. Got a little bit of a miss. Oh, especially in high end, top end. She does freeway speeds, which is what you want, but I'll still have to do a little bit of tuning on here. Maybe enlist some help from some other Saab guys, because it's pretty close, but it's not right there. Anyway, thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you later. Press on.